Hello, I hope you all are doing great today. Today, we're going to be talking about what I'm doing with my preschooler to help to prepare him to make smart decisions about technology as he gets older. One question that I get a lot from parents is, do you have any advice for what to do with my older kid now that they have a cell phone, or my older kid's screen time? And I hate having to say that I don't really know because I'm not at that point in my parenting journey yet. But for those of you who, like me, have younger kids, I'd like to talk about some of the things that we're doing now to help to ensure that our children will make better decisions about technology as they get older. Now, I can't say 100% sure that these philosophies will work because obviously they're not like tried and tested yet. My kids are not older yet, but they are pretty similar to the things that my parents did with me when my siblings and I were kids. So I think I can say that they will probably work just because of that past experience with how how my parents raised me. So I'm going to be really honest with you guys today. I am like super tired. My husband has been working on a paper for his PhD, and he's been up like really early in the morning, going to bed late at night. And since our bedroom is his office right now, that kind of means that his schedule is my schedule. Plus like taking care of the kids, picking up the slack while he's, in our room working on his paper. So I'm going to try to like keep my thoughts together. But if I start to seem a little bit scattered, it's because my brain isn't working at like top capacity today. And that's just kind of how it is. But we're going to do our best here. So I would love it if you say hi as you're hopping on. As always, if you're watching the replay, please say hi in the replay. And I want to try something a little bit different today. I would love it if, as I go through the content of this video, when I say something that really stands out to you as something that's like, wow, that's really awesome, that's something that I need to remember, if you would just drop a little like hashtag truth, and then whatever that thought was that you want to remember, or that you thought was really worth remembering, drop that below, and so that I can see like what is standing out to you guys and what is most helpful for you. I would love for you to do that over the course of this video. Again, whether you're watching live or on the replay, let me know either way. All right, so let's jump into the content. I'm going to cover three things. The three things that I'm doing with my preschooler to help to ensure that he makes smart technology decisions when he gets older and starts making these decisions for himself. Because obviously I'm the one calling the shots right now, but eventually he's going to be making these decisions for himself. And over the course of time, he's going to make more and more of them until he's making all of them himself. Okay, so number one is to set boundaries. Kids have like no concept of boundaries, right? They don't know like where boundaries should be. And so it's our job as parents to establish these boundaries and to let them know what's appropriate and what's not. So for screen time specifically, we have a couple of boundaries that we draw. There's a limit to what they watch and how much they watch. So like my son will ask me all the time, pretty much every single day, Mom, can I watch a video? And usually the answer is no, because there are other things that I want him to be doing. There are other things that I think are so much more important for him as a 4-year-old, as he's learning and developing, learning about the world, that I think are so much more useful to him than watching a video. Obviously there are educational videos, and I have no trouble with educational videos. I mean, like if my son will ask me like, Mom, how does the arm work? Like, how does my arm bend? And so we'll go and we'll look that up on YouTube, and we'll watch a video about how the human arm works so that he can see like the mechanics behind that. And I think sometimes he makes up questions just because he wants to watch a video. But the principle is that I don't care. Like, I'm not bothered by him wanting to learn things. That is not at all the question here. The question is, how much time are we spending just consuming content and taking stuff in when he could be physically engaging in his world and learning and doing rather than just like soaking stuff up? You see what I mean? So I limit what they watch and how much they watch. And I also, what I think is helpful here is to actually talk to him about the decision making process. I know sometimes as parents, we get tired of explaining ourselves, right? Like, don't ask why, just obey, right? I mean, it can get a little frustrating sometimes to feel like they always want to know why, but like they are learning to develop their own decision making processes and their own logical processes. And so if we can explain to them those things, why we make the decisions that we do, I think that it helps them to start to form their own good decision-making processes because they can see how we arrive at decisions and start to put those principles into place in their own decision-making processes. They might not understand it all, but I think it helps get them started. So like, for example, can I watch a video? No. Why not? Well, it's nice outside. You should go outside and play. Or you've got blocks you can build with, or a coloring book. Give them other options. Let them know that I value these other things over your entertainment time. Another thing is there's like a show that I let him watch a few times. And then my husband and I decided like, this is really like, it wasn't that there was anything bad about it. It wasn't like bad content. It was like cotton candy. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't real brain food. It was like lots of like motion and loud music and fast cuts and just like really, it felt really frenetic. And we didn't feel like that was helpful or useful for him. And so we decided that he was not going to watch that show anymore. And we've actually explained that to him. Like, it's not that there's anything wrong with the show. We don't think it's a bad show. We just don't think that it is helpful for you, and explaining those thought processes to him. Okay. Along with boundaries, we also have a policy that when the parent says it's time to turn it off, it's time to turn it off. And I know that there can be pushback against that. We get it in our house. There's but mom, but just one more, please. But we try to establish really clear boundaries that when we say it's time to do something, then it's time to do it. One way that you can sort of waylay the screen time battles, just one more video, or please, can I keep it on, the whining or the fussing or whatever, is to set up clear expectations ahead of time. And honestly, I forget to do this sometimes, but when I do it, it helps so much. And it can completely eliminate any kind of arguments if I remember to do this. So it may be at the beginning before he even starts watching anything, or maybe like halfway through when I decide that, this is going to be pretty near time to turn this off now pretty soon here. And then I'll tell him something like, at the beginning, I might say, okay, we're only going to watch 2 videos today. Or like after he's watched a couple, maybe it's like, okay, one more, and then we're going to turn it off. And just so that he has like that clear expectation, so that it's not like all of a sudden when you get to the end, oh, sorry, no more. That can be really jarring and upsetting when all of a sudden something that they've been enjoying goes away and they're told they can't do it anymore. So I think it's super helpful to upfront just set those expectations before it even begins. I think that's everything I wanted to say on that. Okay. I think like the key here, what's really important about setting these boundaries is, first it like establishes expectations, right? It helps your kids know what to expect. It helps them to start developing their own logical reasoning skills. But if you're setting expectations or boundaries that allow your kids to get bored, it's actually so much better for them. And this is funny because some other moms and I were talking about this yesterday on a completely different topic, but basically the idea of like how much should you be helping your kids find activities to do or doing activities with them? How much should you be doing stuff with them, and how much should you just be letting them get bored and find things to do on their own? And I know people fall like on different places on the spectrum, and that's okay. But personally, I believe that there is huge, huge value in boredom, not only for kids, but for adults too, but especially for kids, because they are learning how to interact with the world. They are learning how to take care of themselves when like there's nothing else to do, like figure out things to do. And it's huge for creativity. There are studies on this that show that you have to be bored to some degree in order to really be creative, because that's what gives your mind the time that it needs to process new ideas, to think of new things, to process the old ideas that you have in your head and like put them together in new ways. So I really believe that boredom is crucial for children's mental and creative development. So set these boundaries. Will go far in helping your kids to start learning to make smart decisions about their technology use. Okay, number 2, this is something that we don't do 100% of the time. I kind of wish that we did it more, but we try not to use screen time as a babysitter. And like I said, sometimes it happens. Like sometimes I've just got to get something done, and like it really feels like the best way to kind of get them out of my hair for a little while is to put on a video. And, I'll be honest, that happens sometimes. But as a general rule, we try to, if our kids watch something, we're watching it with them. Or, if we want to watch something, then we let the kids watch it with us. And I think that's really good for, number one, for like the relationship aspect, because you are presenting screen time, watching whatever you're watching as a relationship building time, and not as like a solo time when you just go off and do your own thing, which is really what I think the advent of smartphones has led us to, is more of a society where we're being social, right? Because we're using social media or we're chatting with our friends or whatever, but we are not engaging in the world around us and the people around us. We are engaging with our phones independent of anybody else, right? So I kind of think of like the sort of model as being like back when radio was the big thing, before televisions, and families would sit around the radio together and listen to a show together. And that was like a family event. So we will often, when the kids watch something, we will watch it with them. And like I said, I think that's useful for, number one, the relationship aspect, but it's also useful for going back to helping children learn to develop reasoning about what they are seeing or the choices they make about what they're seeing. So as we watch, we'll often talk about what we're watching, whether this happens like while you're watching something or after the fact. Just talking about it can help to solidify ideas for your kids and help them start to recognize what's important and what's not important. So, for example, when we're watching something, I like to try to get my kids to think about what they're seeing. So asking questions like, oh, what so-and-so just did wasn't very nice, was it? How do you think you'd feel if that happened to you? Or, do you sometimes do that to your sister? Which, yeah, that happens a lot. But like get them thinking about like how what they're watching applies to their own life. And, so it's not just something detached from themselves that they're seeing on the screen, but it's actually something that can relate to them personally. Or even from the positive side, looking at it as like, wow, that was really neat, wasn't it? Don't you think you would like to try something like that? And start to think about like possibilities, not just like learning from negative examples, but learning from positive examples as well. There are studies that show that children get a lot more, especially with young children, like preschool age, they get a lot more out of what they watch if their parents are engaged with them while they watch it or shortly after they watch it. Because otherwise it's sort of like the whole like in one ear, out the other. Like they don't remember it. It's like fun entertainment and then it's gone. But if you engage with them about it, then it becomes more relevant and something that they will learn more from and remember better. Okay, and then the third point, the third thing that I do with my kids to help them start to learn good screen time, like to make good decisions for themselves as they develop in their screen time decision-making processes, is to be a good example. And hang on just a second. Yes, Johnny? Can you get my disc golf frisbee from my bedroom? I can't. No. But Mommy, please get in the... No. I am in the middle of a video. And your sister is sleeping. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. We've got that 90-second rule where I have to recover from a distraction. Okay. So being a good example with my own screen time. This is a super hard one. I will be very honest with you. It's very hard, right? Because our smartphones suck us in, social media sucks us in, and I am constantly on the lookout for ways that I can do better about this myself so that I am setting a good example for my kids, because I know it's a big one and I know it's something that they're probably going to struggle with too. So if they can see me practicing good habits and learning to improve, I think that that will go far in helping my kids to have good habits as well. Because kids, they do what we see. They do what they see, right? They copy what they see us doing, not so much what we tell them they should be doing. As much as we might hate that, we can't say, do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't really work. And we all know that, right? So, for example, some things that I do to try to set a good example with my own screen use is when I go to pick up my phone, I make an effort to tell my son what I am doing when I pick up my phone. So for example, I might say, "Hey, I'm going to text Daddy and ask him a question," or I need to look up an address, or I need to look up this recipe that I'm planning to make for supper and make sure that I have everything I need and that I don't have to prep anything. That sort of thing, so that he sees me using my technology as a tool and not just I'm bored, so I'm going to let myself get lost in my tech for a few minutes, which, I'm going to be honest, that happens sometimes, but I really make an effort of setting a good example with my technology so that he sees that as something to imitate. Try not to overuse technology, especially when my kids are around, but just to use it as something that is a tool to help to further our lives together. So along those lines, we make a big effort in our home not to let technology interfere with our relationships with one another. So when my kids want to talk to me, I try to put down the phone and actually listen to what they're saying rather than half listening while I'm scrolling my Facebook feed or whatever. There was this study, I can't remember exactly when it was done, but it studied, see if I can remember the details of it. It was parents with children in restaurant settings. And when the parents were on their phones, they were a lot more likely to respond brusquely or inappropriately, being extra harsh with their kids in this restaurant setting. So it really it can really interfere with your relationship, forming those positive relationships with your kids if you're letting technology get in the way. We don't use tech at supper. It's just the family. We sit and we talk. We leave our phones somewhere else so that they're not distracting us. We can't even pick them up because they're in the other room or across the room. But really making that effort to show our kids that people are more important than our phones, and that we are striving to use our phones as tools and not as a substitute for our relationships, for our social life. So those are my 3 sort of principles that my husband and I strive to put into place for our kids so that we can be setting good examples for them. Now we can start to help them be developing good mental processes to make logical decisions, good choices as they grow and start to develop more autonomy in their own tech decision-making processes. I'll let you know how it goes over the years. So what I would love for you to do now that we've reached the end of this content, I would love it if you would send me a message letting me know what your number one screen time struggle, what the number one screen time struggle is in your home with your kids, whether you have young kids like I do, whether you have preschoolers or older children. What is your number one struggle? What problem would you most like to resolve with your family's screen time use? Send me a message. When you When you give me this information, this helps me to create content that's more helpful for you. So I can research your questions, try to find solutions for them. For those of you with older kids, I am looking into the possibility of having a guest speaker come on who knows more about tech for older kids, since that's not really something I feel comfortable addressing at this point in my parenting journey. So feel free to hit me up with whatever questions, because I will find a way to answer them for you. So with that said, I hope you all have a great day, and I will look forward to talking to you again next week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.